Give you some of updates because this flagship program had been in implementation for some time. But when the time we had the first workshop, we were not sure where we were heading. I know Salif was there. We talked about the standing mechanism of how to get it ongoing and then just to promote. What I'm going to do, because I know this is an organization jointly run by Chinese Academy of Sciences, UNEP, but I just wanted to say a little bit more about this organization. This was the partnership organization launched in November of 2011. So we're only 8 years old, something like, so it's not that long. But I think the uniqueness about us is that we are UNEP's first strategic collaborative center in the South and for the South. What we say, we're complementary and supportive of China office and regional offices and contribute to the POW and program of work of UN environment as a whole. And the key is that it's housed by the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and we know that we mobilize the technical and also the wisdoms of the Chinese ecosystem research network. We would say this is probably the largest network, ecological network in the world, because it has thousands of professionals in this network. So all the people here have, in one way or another, associated with this CERN station, that Chinese Academy of Sciences. But we support the government, but we are responding to the member states call because this is a global center, so our presence is not within China, but we're bridging South-South cooperation, and that's the key. And we are talking about a lot of issues and challenges, but as Professor Bourdieu was saying, that a lot of things are complex. So we promote nexus approaches, but focus on climate, ecosystem, and livelihoods, to SDGs and Paris Agreement implementation. But South-South cooperation, South-North cooperation are the key of our engagement. And most of us are scientists. We do projects, provide a science-based policy is something we're aiming at. So the network of strategic partners, you could see many. So I don't know, when we listed it, we're reaching about hundreds now, but presenting more than 20 countries. But we have governments, NGOs, foundations, and CGIARs. I wanted to talk a little bit about SDG because everybody talks about SDG, but I wanted to highlight some of the uniqueness of something that why we want a nexus approach. We know that the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development has 17 goals, but 169 targets. The key characteristics, they are all integrated and indivisible, and the balancing economy, social, environmental dimensions of sustainability. And then this is that publication has laid out, when you look at different targets, you see this is really a network, and you cannot separate one from each other. Some had a weaker or stronger connections, but you cannot say you stand alone solve these SDGs. And this is one of the exercises. Someone uses SDG number 2 in association with other SDGs. They see the relationship has 7 scales, from canceling and contracting to indivisible. So you know when we're getting one down as a positive, the other one is pulling. So it's an issue that need a lot of disciplines to work together. Professor Bourdieu already said in the morning, because they published a paper and which really emphasizing the complexity, and also calling for joint actions and systematic approaches to address these issues. I don't want to elaborate more than what was elaborated in the morning. What I wanted to do, use an ecosystem as an example to see that if we are managing ecosystem and services well, we would have a positive outcome. If not, we're ending up with the vicious circle. The left-hand side, if we are not managing the ecosystems well, you would end up with ecosystem degradation, loss of biodiversity, and ecosystem services losses. Of course, human well-being would be suffering, and also that goes to increased pressure on ecosystem, and coupled with population growth and then complicated or reinforced by climate change impact. So if we can do it in a good way and managing ecosystem where we change all the vicious cycle in the positive outcome, this is what we want to achieve. But the reality is far from the needs. When we say it's a system approach, but a lot of cases, they are sectoral approaches. So from sectoral approach to nexus approach, there's some way to go. I'm going to elaborate a little bit why. When we use ecosystem, climate, and livelihood as different keywords, use a Google search, you find, if you hit ecosystem, there are lots of publications. If you hit climate change, a lot of publications. When you combine them together, especially climate, ecosystem, livelihood combined together, you see negligible outcome of the publications. Although there was a little bit of progress when we did the first one, 2015, 2000, the growth rate is very fast, but still far less than enough. We need this synergy and nexus approach. Right now, people are very comfortable in their own disciplinary zone, and they don't want to step out of their comfort zone. So everybody does it, but we need to push it forward. So with that kind of, sorry? Sorry, I didn't want, okay. Thank you for the education. I didn't want to press it to finish it. So with that one, we developed the concept of framework of cell program. As Bing Fang was saying, this is really, we use improve livelihood through ecosystem restoration and conservation for better ecosystem service in a changing climate. So we focus on nexus 3, like a primary focus and secondary, but of course we work with policies and technology and through capacity building, all of this. And as the chair was saying, it was launched in 2016 as a flagship program of UNEP. That was in UNFCCC Marrakesh workshop. And this really had a lot of buy-in by a lot of participants. So the services we provide from local to global with a focus, but through monitoring, assessment, capacity building, technology, and demonstration, but mainly science for policy. We listed out different kind of ecological types, but we're not limited to this because a lot of times you have more complicated ecosystems. So we are working in more than, as I said, more than 20 countries in the 3 focal regions. African is really our main focus, and then Greater Mekong sub-region and Central Asia. All those projects were located in different parts, the different colors representing different stage of the development. Red ones are the ones completed. You see that we are having a lot of ongoing and lots in the pipeline. So that's somehow we will see whether we can have, you know, something low-hanging fruits in the future we can collaborate. So now I want to go quickly into the implementation of the cell so far in Africa. So what we are having is that the overview of the cell in Africa, including, of course, global DEP, and our GF funded a project, Ecosystem-Based Adaptation, South-South Cooperation in Mauritania and Seychelles. And more, we have 11 projects newly funded by the national bilateral collaboration between NSFC, Chinese National Natural Science Foundation, and the UNEP. So by the way, NSFC is one of the funders to this workshop, although they didn't have people presenting here, but they provide funding. And the bilateral agreement with the Ministry of Science and Technology of China. And right now, I think we are working in 10 African countries in 3 regions, Sahel, Nile, and Zambezi River Basin, where Professor Bing Fang talked about. It's mainly focusing on agriculture and dryland ecosystem. Sounds familiar, how nature-based solutions, that's what we call now. So in Sahel, we have engaged in multiple stakeholders for combating desertification. We have 5 projects, and most of those are ongoing. And the major Chinese partners are from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and also external partners, we have UNCCD, PAGGWI, and lots of others, and plus national partners. In the Nile River Basin, and that's East Africa, really focusing on coupling development and conservation. We have 5 projects and ongoing. So the partners, again, with mostly Chinese kind of sciences institutes, will also have local partners and stakeholders in the country where we have presence. And the Zambezi River and the water food nexus, climate nexus approach, currently we have 2 projects going on, but lots of potential. As Professor Bingfang Wu talked about, the crop watch and others, China cover, right? So that's something. And there are ready technologies could be easily replicated and uptake by the countries if you were interested in. So I wanted to go, I don't know the timing, how many minutes is, who is looking at the time? Only 1 minute left? No. Oh, you're just saying that the timing, so not yet. Okay, I wanted to give you a little bit highlight. One, we just completed the GEF project on EBS South. Really, this one, ecosystem-based adaptation through South-South cooperation, through capacity building, knowledge support, and technology transfer. We have successfully concluded this project. We had some pamphlets outside, but you can easily go to our project website to download all the materials, because this is, in Africa, we have Seychelles and Mauritania as the piloting countries, but in Asia, we have Nepal. So 3 piloting countries. And the projects, I think, yeah, go to ebsouth.org. You would have all the, because this is a capacity building project, we have lots of documentations, even planning tours and menus and all those you can be accessible there. So what we did, this is a project where we initiated the South-South Cooperation Climate Change Forum at UNFCCC. We started in Lima 2014, and by 2017, the Secretary General's Office of UN said, oh, this is interesting. So they uptook. So we handed over to a higher position, but at least the South-South Cooperation Climate Change Forum had been a standing mechanism at UNFCCC COPE. So every year they're doing, so it's a platform to share and to debate and to discuss. And I'm not going to go where.
As a keynote speech, you had 20 minutes, so it's error. So you have more time.
Thank you very much. So I'm raising my kind of talk. I thought I didn't get my 20 minutes up yet. So, okay. Thank you. For example, we are combining on-the-ground intervention with the regional component exchange, and also with both technology transfer and also long-term research, where every project, when we start doing, we worry about when the project completed, what would be a legacy we left behind. With this long-term research component, when the project is all over, we hand it over all the knowledge into the long-term research organization there. So I think this is one of the highlights I wanted to say. I don't know what's it, but these are the interventions we had in Mauritania. Mauritania is really the green belt restoration and desertification control. That's one of the very typical area that we do. So they had a lot of, when the project team doing evaluation about implementation on the ground, and this one was highly recognized. And one of those right now at the Climate Action Summit, they had a documentary really based on this project. It says the hero in, no, oh, sorry, that's in Seychelles, not in Mauritania. But this, again, this one is a knowledge product and policy mainstreaming had been very well presented in all over. I don't want to go too detail. The other highlight is really, someone asked whether we had some concrete examples there in the morning, and these are the highlights, are the concrete examples. We're already making changes, you know, improve the livelihood, also the ecosystem restoration there. The other one is the sustainable management of protected areas in the East Africa, where we looked at how the protected areas as a social ecological system and the challenges between the protection and development. So this is always a challenge there. So the objective is really to understand the coupling between conservation and livelihoods. And this one, we choose East African, but especially using Masai Mara as a our case study in Kenya. So we did a national assessment of human-wildlife conflicts in Kenya, and we had some products. And we also studied why those are happening, how we address it. But on the other hand, we also did a comparison between Masai Mara and China, some of the conservation areas, and to see. But what we are using, I'm not going to go through, we're using the livelihood approach, where you have 5 capitals. We're all associated with the sustainability of livelihood, where we see that there are differences and similarities. But the key here is not about the results, because we only have limited sample. The key is we're using system thinking, because livelihood has so many dimensions. Money is one thing, that's the capital, right? But how about, that's the financial capital. How about the people who can use the money? That's human capital. And also you need other kind of capitals to support this as a system to go. So I'm not going to go to the results of it. The other one I'm not going to say, because several people already said about the famous crop watch and China cover. Both Professor Bourget and Bing Fang also talked about, but this is really a very influential. I think you did some collaboration not only with the countries, with FAO, right? They're using this as a sample. So again, this is really easy, the kind of low-hanging fruit we can think about. So the 2 projects to be funded under UN Environment, most cooperation are also in Africa. One is looking at sustainable utilization of water resources and integrated watershed management in Eastern African Great Lake basins, and the joint research on practical technology to combat desertification for African priorities. And I think those 2 are by the counterparts is the Chinese Academy of Sciences, Nanjing Institute and Xinjiang Institute. We have colleagues from Xinjiang Institute, they're here. So those are already, I think I only used the highlights of it. I wanted to go a little bit because what went next? So there is a perspective for cooperation in Africa based on what I've said, based on the future. The new initiative already said in the opening is that they include Climate Action Summit, a race we can win, and nature-based solutions. Remember, I said all we're doing is really related to nature-based. So this is the, I believe this is going to receive a lot of attention. We have an aim to increase the investment from 3%, at least more than 3%, while they're contributing to 30% of the climate, kind of solutions there. The other one, I don't know, there's a UN resolution passed last March, is decades of ecosystem restoration. So this is something also attract a lot of attention, a lot of potential for collaboration, especially in West Africa. Desertification control is something, so restoration and control would be something very interesting. There's an ongoing initiative in Africa that Salif and others are knowing, a Great Green Wall for Sahara and Sahel. And also there's a UN support plan for the Sahel, and Salif was talking about they have an office here in Dhaka, right? So there's a lot of potential, because what they are emphasizing in the climate smart agriculture and renewable energy is something they wanted to do. So I think there's something to think. There's I think towards the last, I wanted to say that the major technical partners in China, including the China Ecosystem Research Network, see all those dots within China are representing all different kind of ecosystems, and some had their data and information collection for decades. So we're talking about lack of data. Could we just start mimicking what had happened there and replicate it somewhere else? I think there's a demand for the people from other countries who want to learn from China, says how we can replicate what we've been doing. And of course, this network, this CERN, not only limited with CAS, there's a collaboration and partners outside of the CAS. For example, we have Beijing Normal University, among others, who are part of these networks. I think I'm finishing with a summary of potential fundings for China-African Cooperation Partnership, which are listed here. Multilateral funding sources, including GF, GCF, and adaptation, AF. GF, how many people doesn't know these acronyms? Okay, everybody knows. Oops, oh. GF is a Global Environment Facility, GCF is a Green Climate Fund, AF is an Adaptation Fund. Those are multilateral funds. And major South-South cooperation initiatives between UN Environment and China, that including the dots of so many. But we should not forget there's a private sector who are eagerly to engage with us to address the real-world problems. So we need to be mindful that when we scientists talk to the private sectors, they wanted to say what in return, might not to themselves, but to the society as a whole. So that pushes the scientists not only trying to publish scientific papers, but also addressing the people's needs on the ground. So that shakes up our ideas and the way we approach to the issues there. Oh, there are more, okay. Proposals for promoting nexus approach sustainability. I think that's just a summary. Build up a knowledge hub on dryland in Africa and organize training and seminars that we did in the past, but we want to do it more systematically, but to build a local capacity for dryland ecosystem. Enhance multiple stakeholder advocacy on dryland development in Africa. So upscaling some of the projects we already introduced here. I wanted to say the collaboration, I always say South-South cooperation is a mutual learning process. So it's a learning not only to communicate, but mutually understand the substance in the community, you know, because Chinese have our own way of understanding, but Africans have their own cultural background understanding. We need to learn from each other. Key is to start dialogue, start opening a door to receive different disciplines, different people, and from different continents and different classes. That's somehow I wanted to say. With that, I want to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have my great honor to be here to meet the old and the new colleagues. My presentation will draw your attention a little bit to climate change. We know the climate change is one of the serious environmental issues in this time. And I focus the climate change and its risk. We know, observe global temperature was growing up and projected warming will continue. And climate change through the mean, shift mean, that means the gradual trend, increase the variation and then increase the extreme event leading more risk. Last year, we know there was heat waves everywhere and hot become a popular word in the world. 30 degrees centigrade was observed in the Arctic, and more than 0 degrees centigrade observed in the Atlantic during the winter seasons. And intensive tornado typhoon everywhere. In China, we have the similar situation and resulting in serious loss. So that we see the climate change, and then we have abrupt or graduate event resulting in disaster risk. And we need to quantify, to identify the risk, and then we have this adaptation. So that I have a little bit to say how we identify this risk. From these components of the climate change risk, we know we have this abrupt and graduate event. So that the first step, we calculate the abrupt risk. Firstly, we define the extreme issue. Take the extreme rainfall, for example, and we have the 3 days maximum rainfall for the different degrees. And second one, we regulate the flood damage rate with history data. After that, we can calculate the risk by damage rate, exposure possibility, and calibration parameter to project. To project the flood demands damage. And we have the similar way to project heat wave and drought. Then, second step, we calculating the gradual risk. This we compare the change with the ecosystem threshold. And we first we simulating the NPP. We find out the threshold and then the change analysis, and then we compare. And for the production, we have the similar methodology. And then the last step, we calculate every grid standard deviation, and we combine all these factors to the risk classification. Then we apply this method to see what is the risk in China. First, we see First, we see the sensitive areas of climate change. That means where it would be happen. This is the temperature. We have the whole country is warming, and the reddish, brownish areas is faster warmer, and this is lower rate. And precipitation, we have more rainfall, and the area is less rainfall, and then this will be combine this one to sensitive regions. And within this sensitive region, we calculate the where it will be serious for drought, for heat wave, and for this heavy rainfall. We have the damaged regions. And last, we analyze what will be affected by population, economy, and ecosystem, and food production for this risk. And this is the distribution. I will not go detail. And this is quantity result. And then we applied this methodology to Western Western Africa. We know in these areas we have a clear regional differences. Hot and dry in the north part, wet in the south part, and copperland is almost 7% in the whole areas and 11% in Senegal. And then for the trending change, temperature going up and precipitation, runoff, depth, and the ecosystem NPP will be not have clear trend, and crop yield will going down. And then we assess for the heat wave risk, and this is the average distribution and the affected population and GDP. And this was the drought risk and the flood risk that is applied in this Western Africa areas. And this is for the food risk. The whole areas will be the high risk. Oh, sorry. The whole areas will be the high risk for the food production. And finally, I have some suggestions. Technically, we should have the action for climate adaptation. We must have the disaster risk prevention and ecosystem protection. And we, in the management aspect, we need a policy guarantee. We must have marketing support, and we need bilateral, multilateral cooperation. Thank you for your attention.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Wenwu ZHAO from Beijing de University, and it's my great honor to be here to give a presentation. And today, my topic is promoting extreme service for sustainability development. And it's my key content is the first is the general background of global change for sustainability. And the second is we talk about something about extreme service and sustainability. And the last one, I want to talk something about how to promote extreme service for SDGs. And as we know, we are in a changing world. The climate change, the population increased, which means that we have so many challenges. For example, the biodiversity is declining, and also the Earth seeding process have exceeded the planetary boundary. And also we have so many needs, such as resource need and society need, which means that for our world, we have so many challenges. We have to consider about how to meet this kind of challenge. That's why in 1987, the UN they decided that we want to sustainable development, which means that we not only want to meet the present need, but also we want to meet the need for the future generation. And also in 2015, and the UN provided the 17th goals is some development, sustainable development goals. And in And for these goals, I think almost all of us should know that, which means that for this one, we want to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all the person. And also, we want to leave no one behind. And also, we want to achieve each goal and target by 2030. Honestly speaking, it's a great, great dream, but it's just a dream. Which means that in 2018, on the report side, it is not enough to achieve the initial target by 2030. Which means that there's so many challenges, so many uncertainty. And for this challenge, we have to consider about how to cope with this kind of problem. And in my opinion, the key is to think about how to do this. The first is that we need to think about that, what can we get from nature? And also we need to consider about what we need from nature. And we need balance the human need and the supply, and maybe we will have a more beautiful future. And that's why I want to talk about the exchange service and some development. And generally speaking, when we talk about what we need from nature, in my opinion, it's just a kind of the achieving sustainable development, which means that the sustainability is just our need. But also, and what we can get from nature. And we get from nature is exchange service. And today, there are so many professors have talked about the exchange service. It's just the benefit people obtain from ecosystem is a good and service of nature. And honestly speaking, the exchange service can link the human and nature system, which means that the exchange service can give us so many things, can meet our need. For example, the soil and water can give so many factory and so many exchange services and to help us to achieve the sustainable development goals. And also, which means that the exchange service can make great contribution for the poverty alleviation. It means that the exchange service has so close relationship with SDGs. Well, how to do that? How to promote exchange service for SDGs? And honestly speaking, the exchange service alone will not fully realize SDGs, but it's just starting the key point for SDGs. And how to do that? And the key question, in my opinion, is just two. The first is that which SDGs are more important? We need to know which one is more important. And the second, we need to know what are the relationships among exchange service and SDGs. And then we carry out research, try to figure out what is the relationship between SDGs and exchange service. And we get about 300 responses from the different countries. And there's some very, very interesting results, and I can share with you here. And first question, and which SDGs are more important? And we notice that for the so many SDGs, and their priority is not different. And maybe for most important is the zero hunger, the clean water, and no poverty, and good health. And also, there are also some other not important, such as partnership, which means that the importance are different among different SDGs. And when we consider more about this kind of difference, we notice that for this kind of thing, it's just like the basic need. And also, there's some environmental conservation and social development. It's just like that. When a man want to make some progress, the first important thing is we need to meet our basic need. And then we need to consider about the environmental conservation, and then to fulfill the social development. It's a different steps for development. And also, we try to figure out what the relationship between exchange service and SDG, and want to figure out what's the reason for different importance for SDG. We also notice that maybe it has a very close relationship with econ. And we notice that, for example, for some countries, you have so many money, maybe they make pivotation on the climate change, but for some low-income country, they pivoting on no poverty. And which means that the SDGs are different for different countries, for different areas. And we need to consider about the real meaning of SDG. And it may be impossible to achieve each SDG at the same time for all the countries, for all the world. And if development is continuous and sustainable, I think it's enough. And we may pay more attention, not the target, but the development processes. And also, time is limited. And also, okay, what's the relationship between ES and SDG? And we notice that the ecosystem, not all the ecosystem services can play the key role for sustainable development. And also, we think it is impossible to promote SDGs by improving some important ecosystem service. And it's a general framework for how to promote ecosystem service for SDG. And maybe later we can discuss later for the limited time. And here I want to give you some key remarks, in my opinion. The first is that the different country or different continents should have different targets, not the same. And the second is that we may pay more attention on the development processes, not only just focus on some target, and also the ecosystem service can play a key role for the future. And also we know it's a long way to go to promote ecosystem service for SDGs. And here I want to have two key suggestions for us. The first is that it's time to develop the different SDG for different continents and for different countries, which means that for Africa, we should have our own SDGs, not for the same SDGs with the world. And the second is that more effort should be paid on promoting the service for SDGs by coupling human initiatives. And also here is just a quick some slides to share with you, some potential cooperation in the future with you. And first is that we need to publish some paper. And here we have our new journal. The first is geography and sustainability. And the key topic is we focus on geography processes, the human environment systems, the ecosystem service and human well-being, and some development and geodata and model. And I think we can publish some paper here. And also we have some special issue focused on ecosystem service, SDGs, and something else, some other topics. And it's a special issue in Chinese geography science, it's a special issue in land ecology, and also some special issue in science of the total environment. We do hope that we can contribute some future for the special issue of our journal. And also we have our own international cooperation, which means that we have the IEMP Commission focused on geographical field Earth. And we think that in the future, we can do more for the future. Thank you so much.